session, Getting Dirt Turned. Amy here, and she's from the Assistant Director for the City of Franklin, correct? All right, so here we go.
Awesome. All right, hi everyone. You guys are making me real nervous being in the hallway, so I'm going to take a deep breath and we're going to have a good time talking about vesting. Yes, my name's Amy Diaz-Barriga. I'm the Assistant Director of Current Development for the City of Franklin's Planning and Sustainability Department. I've been there 11 years, and one of the key things about our department is that we shepherd through all development applications to the elected and appointed officials. So, as you can imagine, vesting caught my attention when it first came about, and we've slowly tried to figure out what vesting means and what do we do with it. And so I've been in the trenches of vesting for a while, so we thought, let's bring it to everyone else and have a discussion about, well, what's everybody else doing with it? What do you know about it? So that's why we're here today. Before we get started, though, let's get you guys activated. Who went to the social event last night? Anybody? Yay! Did you have a good time? Yay! All right. And then who's going to trivia tonight? Yay! Back row girl, it's going to be fun. All right. So, yeah, anyone have good trivia knowledge? Are you ready? You got the Jeopardy mind?
80s Joel and Homer.
Yes, 80s. Yeah, here we go. I love it. Okay. All right, good. Well, I'm glad everyone's having a good time. You're going to have a good time tonight. Hopefully you have a good time right now talking about vesting, because I am the vesting queen. Hopefully I don't bore you too much, but let's get going. So technical stuff for every presentation. Here's today's objectives. First, I want to get us all on a baseline in terms of information about vesting, so we kind of all can move through the next steps together so you understand what vesting is, what it means. So that's what we're going to start with, that legislature from 2015. Then I'm going to talk about what we did in Franklin, how we developed a system for managing vesting, and what we're doing to hold developers accountable to their timelines that they've been promised, to the city. After that, I'm going to introduce you to a tool that we created. We went public with it just this year, and it has made vesting management infinitely easier for myself. So I want to share that with everyone so everyone can have the same tool. And then at the very end, we're going to discuss recent state changes to the state legislature. There's just a couple changes, but they're kind of a big deal, and they mean that cities have to do things and put things in place in their ordinances. So I want to make everybody aware of that so you guys can all do the same thing. So let's jump in. Vesting. Okay. Here's the overview of vested rights. If anyone needs to go look it up in state legislature, that's where it is, 13-4-310. And the title of it is that big, long blue sentence, power of municipal planning commission to promulgate, lawyer words, provisions for development vesting period for the development standards as to approved development plans. Woo, that's a mouthful. Okay. It took effect January 1st, 2015. And the gist of it is that green area, that green sentence, that what vesting is doing is it's saying that the locally adopted development standards, which are in effect on the date of approval of a preliminary development plan, shall remain the development standards applicable to the property or building during that vesting period. Okay, right? That's a lot again. The gist of it is that when a project gets approved, the rules that were in place the day it got approved get to stay the rules for that project as it gets completed. So cities can change their ordinances a million different times after a project gets approved, and it's too bad, so sad. They get to stick the rules that they started with. That might seem skewed for the developer, and maybe in some ways it is, but vesting has a lot of important information in the legislature that I think makes it a two-way street. That cities, if you take advantage of it, you can use vesting to your advantage as well. And so that's what we're going to go through today. Other parts of this section of TCA, it does a lot. It does a lot about vesting. There's a lot to explain. So it talks about the start date of vesting, different milestones that have to happen for vesting for projects to maintain their vesting. It talks about certain violations that developers or projects may do that immediately terminate vesting. It talks about when an approving body can reconsider vesting and when an approving body can extend vesting. I feel like I've already said vesting about 27 times, but we're going to keep saying it. Okay. So we're going to go over some of these things, not all of them today, but we will go over the majority of those topics right there. And we're going to start with the start date and the milestones, that timeline of vesting. So how does vesting affect a project? What timelines does it have to, what steps does it have to meet, and what timeline does any project that gets vested get granted? So we're going to start with the start date, the orange. Vesting starts on the date of final approving body's action. So for the city of Franklin, that could be our planning commission. It could also be our board of mayor and aldermen. It might be your city council, who you have as the approving body, your local approving body. And that's the start date. So today, October 21st, down at the bottom of the screen for those who can see it. If a project got approved today, we're going to use that as our start clock. That's what I think of it as like a stopwatch. So you're starting that stopwatch for a project. A project then has 3 years to meet its first milestone. So within 3 years from when you started that clock, a project has to obtain a site plan, it has to pull the necessary permits, and begin site preparation. If it doesn't do that, vesting expires. They're done. They don't get to play by the rules that they got approved with. They have to meet today's standards. And that can mean big changes for a project. So keep that in the back of your head as we talk through all of this. It's like, that's the essence of vesting. If they lose it, they have to play by today's rules. Okay. So thinking about today's approval, 3 years from now is October 21st, 2028. They have to meet that first milestone. If they do that, a project then gets an additional 2 years. And within that 2-year time frame, or 5 years total, a project has to commence construction and keep their permits active. If they meet that milestone, then a project has a total of 10 years, so not an additional 10, but a total of 10 years or 15 years to complete their project. No matter how big. Doesn't matter if it's one building or 500 homes, 10 years or 15 years. And the key to that difference is that the project is either phased when it's approved or it was a single-phase project. So single-phase projects get 10 years, multi-phase projects get 15 years. So if something gets approved today, a big master plan multi-phase project, they have until 2040 to complete it, so long as they meet these certain milestones. Any questions on that so far? I don't want to just talk for 45 minutes if you have questions. Everybody raise your hand if you have something you need to ask. Yes?
So project completion, is that, like if you're working on a subdivision plat, is it when the plat would be recorded, or is it like U&O for the building that's completed as a part of that development?
So it's all the buildings are done, they have COs, everything's completed. At the City of Franklin, we've tried to figure out what that means to us, and that's how we define it, is that every building on the property has gotten a certificate of occupancy, and we've even thought about whether or not they've gone from their bonds being released from performance to maintenance, because those city infrastructure pieces we also want to be complete. Okay. Anybody else? Okay, good. Okay, so that's the timeline of vesting. So the next question you're probably asking, maybe, is, well, what does this apply to? What projects would get vesting? So state law talks about how vesting is granted to preliminary development plans. In the absence of the need for a preliminary development plan, it does fall to site plans, so some site plans can get vested. And in the absence of the need for a site plan or a preliminary development plan, it falls to the building permits to get vested. We are not going to talk about building permits today because that is way down on the rabbit hole and we don't have enough time. So, yes?
Real quick, just following
Sure.
there over 15 years.
Yeah.
You indicated that the city of Franklin looks at, now all bills complete, all bills met their CBO,
Yeah.
you're looking at infrastructure. So is there no direction given by the state law on what needs to be in place, or is it just up to that?
Yeah. I honestly can't remember if there's a definition of a completion in there. Sam's up here shaking his head, no, there's not. So that's where
So it's kind of left up to the jurisdiction, right?
I believe so. I mean, I think there's something, like, as you read through it, there's probably some triggers that you could lean on that you're like, okay, that sort of means completion to us, but there's no definition of complete means CO versus, I don't know, something else, a plat recorded. So sorry, there's nothing clear in state law about completion. Yeah, sorry. Okay, so what plans are getting invested? Preliminary development plans. And when you don't have this, a site plan. So what is a preliminary development plan? Sorry, I'm going to read the screen, but it's a plan which has been submitted by an applicant and approved by a local government, describing with reasonable certainty the type and intensity of use for a specific parcel or parcels of property. That's kind of vague and all-encompassing, right? But that's where we're starting with, because this is the language from state law. Now, the nice thing about state law is it does follow up with criteria. It gives you some language and some examples of what would be considered on a preliminary development plan. So a plan that would have site boundaries on it, a plan that has topo, natural features shown, plans that show buildings, structures, improvements, infrastructure, plans that have dimensions listed, including height. I love state law in this sense because they say in it, sketches do not qualify. So that's nice. That it's like, no, this has to have some meat to it. It has to show some things, understanding with reasonable certainty how development would happen. And it even explains that it could be any document used to facilitate initial public feedback and secure preliminary approvals from local governments. So if you start thinking about it, I hope you are right now, thinking about the applications that you have in your city or jurisdiction, what are these applications that we have that are getting, entitlements, like development secured preliminarily by local governments, that you're going to have several, I think, that you're thinking of. The nice thing is it's not just anything. It's not just because they created something and put it into the world that it's vested. No, it has to have some sort of approval process to it. The other thing about it is, as I'm talking, you're making your own list in your head, hopefully. State law says that you can acknowledge your specific language from your city. You can identify what constitutes preliminary development plans. You just have to acknowledge that through ordinance or resolution. But I think that's a really good thing. That's, I think, fairly quick to do, and then you have in your ordinances and regulations what it means to vest in your city or jurisdiction. Yeah.
This may be premature, but
Sure.
did not this slide before this talk about submission, and now we're talking about approvals? Those two don't.
Well, okay. I love this question because this is definitely the spoiler alert for the end of the presentation. So, yeah, spoiler alert, state law changed this all up on us starting July of this year. But because of over the last 10 years, it's been approval of a plan. We're going to stick with approval for now. So everything starts on approval. No, it's okay. I like it. You're paying attention to what's out in the world. Okay, so right now it's approval is when the clock starts. All right, so hopefully you're thinking about the ordinances or the list of your applications in your head. Take note that you need to adopt it by ordinance or resolution. Okay, so let's do that for a second. Think about your jurisdiction. Think about what I just said about all the criteria of a preliminary development plan. City of Franklin did this. We started thinking about, well, what do we have? What kind of master plan documents do we have that sort of translate to this preliminary development plan, preliminary approvals by a governing body. You know, do you have PUDs? Do you approve master plans? Do you approve preliminary plats? Do you have some other word that you use, but it's essentially a master plan or a preliminary approval? Those would be things that you need to pay attention to that are going to vest. And when those things, those application types are not required by your jurisdiction, your site plans are going to vest. So site construction documents are going to vest. You call them site plans, maybe you call them something else, but this is the list of applications that you need to start thinking about because they're going to vest. They're going to gain this right, this golden ticket to say, the rules when we got approved are the rules we get to stick with for 10 to 15 years, okay? Okay. Now, what do you need to think about for those vested documents, okay? You've started to make a list in your head about what applications we're talking about, but what are you going to need to pay attention to on those applications to track, to sort of manage vesting? Well, we want to go back to several slides where I showed you the gist of state law. You want to think about the start date of that document, the approving body of that document, what local standards were in place at the time when it got approved. And you might want to start doing math. I did it in an Excel spreadsheet. If its approval date is today, what is its first milestone going to be? What is its second milestone going to be? And what's the total vesting period? All of these things are going to be important if you truly want to manage vesting and when projects are going to lose or keep their vested rights. Okay. Oh yeah, I did it in a spreadsheet. I love Excel. Who loves Excel? Come on. Yes! So many hands. I love it. I do. I love an Excel spreadsheet. And so how did Franklin do this? I just started with Excel. And I had about maybe 20, 25 columns and 500 rows, and it was wild, but that's how I started. But we also did a lot of different things. So at Franklin, we started to think about, well, the goal of vesting is that you get local development standards retained throughout the course of your project. Local development standards is a key word. So we started to think about, what do we approve at a local level? I need to make sure I understand not just zoning ordinance. I live in planning, but there's other things that the city adopts. What are all of these documents? I need to pay attention to those. And I have to figure out how to manage them throughout the course of projects. Like I said, I also had to figure out that list of applications, get it approved by ordinance or resolution, and then find all of those projects starting from 2015 on and dump them into a spreadsheet. So that was fun. And then once I had a spreadsheet, I had to think about, well, how am I going to go back to this spreadsheet and manage it? I mean, I can't just look at it and say, oh, that's pretty. I have to actually do something with it. But I had to think about, well, how does this fit into my real world, everyday job, and how often am I going to manage it? So we had to think about that. And because it was not a lot of staff people working on this, I also had to think through, I can't just only live in the world of vesting. I have to prioritize what I'm going to do with this data and talk about it and why we're going to do those things. So something else you might want to do is think about the priorities of vesting. What does your city need to use vesting for? Like I said, determine what to do with the data, and then also find ways to document this knowledge. It's all well and good that I made this giant spreadsheet that lives on my, hard drive, but if no one else knows those dates, what is that going to do for anybody? So you need to find ways to get that data out there so that you have more transparency with your developers, with your elected officials. So thinking through, how do I take that data and then push it out on plans, on your website, things like that. Okay. So from that list, let me back up and get your thinking about your local development standards, because this was one thing that we took some time to think through. Like I said, we all live in the world of planning, so we know zoning ordinance gets adopted locally. Subregs gets adopted locally. But as the city of Franklin thought about what else we had, here's our list that we decided are also development regulations adopted locally. It's local standards that are applicable to the development of property. So our streets department has a text standard book where it talks about how big the right-of-way can be and what's supposed to be in it, intersection spacing, all of those things. That's a document that would vest. Stormwater BMP manual. There's state law about stormwater, but we also have local jurisdictions and regulations. So our local stormwater manual would vest. Technical specifications for utility installation. Portions of our municipal code are applicable to development. And then our historic district guidelines. And I show the guidelines because we didn't quite think of that one right away. But we realized that a local approving body uses that document to apply to development. And there's an approval process there where someone can't do something in our historic district without the approval of that body. So that document vests. So let me see if I can take you to what we did. So then, once we identified all these, we realized, well, can we make it easier on ourselves and just put it in one spot? And we did. So, oh no, why doesn't it go there? Oh, crap. How do I screen share? Hi. Sorry. Tech support. It's not on my PowerPoint. I just pulled up a website. And I want to show you our website, but I guess I can explain it. What we did is we took all of these documents, okay? We put it on a single web page, and for each one, we list every version of that document starting from 2015 on. Okay, sure. Oh, I just go to a different window. Oh, geez. Okay, sorry, I knew that. It'd probably be internet. Okay. Yeah. Down that one? Okay, perfect. So yeah, so you see, we have the zoning ordinance and all the different versions that have vested since 2015 because here's the deal. Every time you change your ordinance, a project might get another version vested in it. A project that got approved in 2015 gets the 2015 version, but a project in 2018 doesn't get the 2015 version. That's not the current regs. It gets the 2018 version. But the project that gets the 2018 version doesn't have to play with all the ones after that, but new projects do. Is your head spinning yet with how much data that you might have to pay attention to? Yeah, it's crazy. And we were like, okay, well, let's at least find all these documents, scan them, put them somewhere so that we at least know where to find them. So when we have to go back to projects, we can find the local development standards that apply to it. So you can see we have lots of different things down here. And this brings me to a point that we also learned in dealing with vesting over the years. Look how many zoning ordinance updates we've done at the City of Franklin. I mean, gosh, I love our department, but we really like change, don't we? I say getting better. We're constantly getting better, right? Okay? But, my gosh, January 1st, we made a change, and then in April, we made another change. We couldn't have decided to just hold those together and make one so there was one less document to keep a track of for vesting. That's what we figured out. Let's do our best to hold all the changes we want to make at least to the end of the year. So we have less changes to manage, less changes to remember. Because I'll be honest, I'm looking at a plan from 4 years ago. They want to make a change to, say, the materials of a building. I know I've changed the rules 3 times, but which vesting are they under and what change was it? It's a lot to remember. So something like this, like I said, I'm taking a long time on it, but I think it's very valuable to have is Figure out what all your rules are over the years and find a way to store them in one place so that everyone can access them. This is on our public website so developers can access it and all our city staff can access it very easily. Okay, enough about that little high horse. Okay, good. Back to where I was. Cool. Nope. Yes, absolutely. Yeah. We have had an experience where a developer knew they were going to come in, knew we were going to adopt new rules, and squeezed in right at the right time so that they could get the old rules. Which, I mean, whatever. If they did it, that's what they can do. We've had some projects that, and I'll get into this a little bit when I talk about how we reach out to developers. We've had some developers that aren't managing their vesting timeline, and when we tell them, hey, you got 6 months to meet a milestone or you're going to lose it, that gets a fire under them, let me tell you, and they start moving things along. And then we've had several where we let them know that they're vesting, they're about to hit a milestone if they don't do anything, and they have chosen to ask to extend their vesting. And in that case, there's not a lot of language in state law about how that gets approved. It really says, I should have this memorized already, if the local approving body deems it, oh, now I'm looking at my director because I can't remember the language, deems it in the best interest of the community. There we go. I wrote it enough times, I should know it by heart. So that's where the original approving body comes into play, because that's who gets to decide whether vesting gets extended. Not staff, not a midpoint, not your city administrator. It's the original approving body can extend the vesting if it's in the best interest of the community. So, great question. Okay, let's see, where were we? Okay, local development standards, yearly update. Okay, so like I said earlier, it's really just me and one or two other people in my department managing all of vesting. So I have lots of other things to do in my day. I can't only do vesting. So what we've decided to do is go touch this data monthly. And we have a series of things we do once a month. First of all, we add in all of the new approvals. Anything new, you got to add to that spreadsheet to keep it current, okay? So we look at the original, that list of projects that get vesting, we find them for the month and add them in. Next, great question. You didn't even know this slide was coming up. This is exactly what we do. We look to the projects that have not met their vesting milestones, and they're about 6 to 7 months out from expiring. We kind of do a check on the last month. A lot can happen in a month, so we still make sure that they haven't done those steps that required for meeting the milestone, and then we reach out to them. Whoever was on that original application, the property owner and the development team, we send them a letter and say, guess what? You might lose your vesting in 6 or 7 months if you don't do these certain things. And we've gotten it to a template letter. It's just filling out a couple spaces, and so now it's really fast. We get those out pretty quickly. And then we also do a follow-up. We also look at those projects that we sent a letter and they still haven't done anything. We're being really nice, and we're like, hey, you only have like 4 months. If you don't act almost immediately, you are going to run out of time before your vesting expires. So we try our best to reach out so we can say, look, we've have done everything we can to keep you informed of this date. So when they lose their vesting, it's like, too bad, sorry, you know, you were told. And then, and so the last thing on the slide is that seems like maybe a lot of searching around different departments. How do I know a project met its milestone? Am I driving around the city for for the whole day, just checking sites to see if they're going vertical? No, I'm not doing that, because that's crazy. We found ways in our own systems where I can sit at my desk and figure out if milestones have been met, which is great. Because if you think about the different milestones, that beginning site prep, site plan approval, we realized, okay, well, that means they've had a site plan, so I can check that in our systems. And site prep means you're touching the ground related to that development. What triggered in our head is that, okay, well, they've had their pre-con meeting on site, they've pulled a stormwater permit, and they're having active stormwater inspections because they put something in the ground. Our staff now has to go check that. That's in a database somewhere that I can just go pull up based on the project address. So again, now it's super fast. I can see if they met a milestone. Same thing with the second milestone, that's commence construction. So I'm not driving around the city to see if buildings are created. What I'm doing is I'm going to our codes department and seeing if they have a foundation inspection approved. Because it's not just that they applied for the foundation inspection, it's that we've gone out and said, yes, that foundation is done. That tells me that building is starting to come out of the ground. They're commencing construction. So just keep that in mind as you're, maybe starting to think about, how am I going to manage this as one person? Find ways that you can do it from your desk and you're not driving around the city or asking a bunch of people. This is a way that I don't have to constantly go to the codes department. I just have access to their data. So, yeah.
For your reviews and upcoming expirations, like I've read this statute many more times than I want to see it.
Yeah.
You're doing that as a courtesy to be proactive for the developers, correct?
We are. His question was, when we're reaching out and sending letters, you're doing that to be proactive. Essentially, it's not required of the city to do that. Absolutely not. Developers are responsible for their development. We are doing that on a proactive basis as a way to say, we're telling you, and it's really a way to say, when they do lose it, we can say, well, we tried to help you. We gave you information. It was up to you to meet the demand, or the rules. So, any other questions? That was a good one. Okay. So again, this still seems like kind of a lot. Did you have a question? No. Okay. This still seems sort of, oh yeah, go ahead. Uh-huh.
In the middle of it, some contractor builds the house too close to the road.
Okay.
A foot or two, so he come across the BZA asking for a variance.
Okay.
For whatever reason, the BZA decides that, yes, that's good.
Okay.
It's not gonna affect anything negatively.
Okay.
Does that restart those dates? Because that's another day of approval.
No. Nope. Absolutely not. What they're doing is they're just working within the rules that they got approved by. If they did something that required a variance, they're following the steps of allowing a variance to happen. They're getting that approval, and they're just staying under their vested rights for development. Does not restart the clock. Yeah. Yeah. And to that point, if someone's making a certain revision to a plan, it doesn't necessarily start the clock over. The only time the clock ever gets restarted is if you go back to the original approving body and get development reapproved, and it's clear that with the reapproval, new vesting is applied. Because it's not just the clock that starts, it's all the new rules. Okay? So, but if you have some sort of administrative level approval, you can have that happen all the time. Your clock's not restarting. Does that make sense to everyone? Yeah, go ahead.
It does, except for one thing. So
Okay.
planning development,
Uh-huh. Okay. Okay. Okay, so they're not changing the densities for everyone to hear, they're changing elevations. Okay.
It's going back to the planning commission under approval,
Okay.
or requested approval. Does that PUD then come under current stage?
Okay, so the question was, if they're changing elevations but not density, does that restart the clock and get new development standards? Let me ask you a question. Was the Planning Commission the original approving body of that PUD? Were they the ones that get to say yes or no to it originally? Council gets to say that. Okay, well then it doesn't matter what Planning Commission does. It's not until it goes to your council that the clock could restart, but you would have to restart with new rules. That may.
It's a recommended body.
Oh,
It would have to go back, I don't know if yours is the same, but ours would have to go back to council after that planning commission recommendation.
okay, so that's a clarifying. So now he's telling me that the elevations change would have to go all the way back to council. It goes to Planning Commission first for a recommendation, but then it goes back to council. Okay, so if that plan's going all the way back to the original approving body, it could restart the clock, but you have to apply new rules to it. They could just allow it to continue under the original vesting. That's their decision. So that's something you also need to make clear to your approving bodies, is that by allowing revisions to plans that they've vested plans, they're essentially saying they get to keep their vesting even though they're changing it. Or there's a list in TCA that says if they want to apply new vesting to it, the current set of rules, there's certain things that plan has to be doing. So I'm getting in the weeds a little bit, I'm sorry, but so for elevations, I don't know if that's one of those triggers. You'll have to go to TCA, but it's like if you're changing intensity, and I'm looking at Sam, because do you have it memorized? Density, type of intensity, some major changes to it, but that list is pretty all-encompassing, so I don't know if elevations would count. Okay, so there you go. So if the original approving body is going to say, we're going to approve your revision, but you have to follow today's rules, there's a list that plan has to be doing in order to start the clock again and give it a new set of rules. Otherwise, it just gets to continue under its old vesting. But the clock doesn't restart. So if they're dragging their feet and making a bunch of changes, I hope they're getting to that 3-year mark on time, and I hope they're getting to that 5-year mark on time, because that clock's not restarting even though they're changing their mind 20 times. Does that make sense? So that's where I'm saying that works for you guys. You guys meaning cities. I don't know who else is here, sorry. So if you're paying attention to that and there's a project that just can't make its mind up, well, just keep tabs on that 3-year mark, because they're going to have to meet it somehow, Did I see a question? Yeah.
Does the vesting period, the first milestone have to be exactly 3 years, or could a municipality make it more than that? Like, could we say, oh, it's 5 years for?
No, it's 3 years. The original approving body could grant an extension if it's in the best interest of the community, but that extension has to be granted before the project expires. Yes, vesting is project by project, so that's why they got to ask. Yeah, question back there. Uh-huh. Okay. We just look at it and say, well, those are lots. If you're going to go pull a building permit, follow the new rules. I know that's extra simplified, but that's essentially what it is, We've had a couple of those where a project has gotten some infrastructure installed, but they haven't gone vertical. They lost their vesting. So we had to think about, well, can we accept that infrastructure? What do we do with it? Luckily, they came all the way back through, got reapproved, and now are continuing with the infrastructure that they installed. But yeah, if something stalls out and they platted some stuff, even if they platted easements, it's okay that there's easements platted. even if there's nothing in it. It's just the next person to develop that property is going to have to, probably change them. So, does that answer? Got it? Okay. Okay, let's see. How much time do I have left? 15 minutes. Oh, gosh. Okay. Let me go fast then. But these are good questions. I'm glad it's just not me talking. Okay, let me try to get out of here because I really want to show you a tool we have. What's happening? I'm frozen? No, there. Okay, this is our tool. This is super cool. This is what I wanted to show you because we took it out of an Excel spreadsheet that only was on my computer, and constantly everybody was calling me, Amy, what about this project? Is it vested? Is it not? I don't know. Look it up yourself. They couldn't because it was on my desk. And we put it onto a website where not only city staff can see it, but anyone can see it. You guys could go look this up tomorrow or this afternoon if you want. The goal is to get the data out there and get it to be a tool for everyone, including citizens, our elected officials, everyone. So let me show you, if I can, real fast, how to get to that. There, yes, perfect. Okay, well, here's where it is if you want to go find it. City of Franklin. Where do I put it? Usually I have it tabbed. You can go to Planning and Sustainability. We kind of have it buried right now. We're going to work on that next. Okay, come on. Slow. Okay. Nope. Let me just go to my tab maybe. There we go. Okay. There it is. development.franklinTN.gov/vesting/projects. Basically, all those little different points that I told you to focus on for each project that develop all those different key pieces of data, we try to put it on a single line for a project. And I'm sorry it's loading so slow, but we tried to also do it in a way where you could search even just a portion of the name of a project, and it could start to auto-populate everything in there, so it's easy to find projects. So, if an alderman or a council member knew, well, it was West something. What was that project again? West something? That's kind of all you get sometimes. You can start typing West, and then a bunch of projects will come up, and then you go, oh, you meant West Haven. Got it. Okay, got it. So that's our IT person was amazing in developing this. He didn't know much about vesting, so I had to give him the Cliff Notes version, and he found ways to make this dashboard excellent. So Andrew Southern, I will shout his name to the heavens. He did amazing. Dang, this might not work. Okay. Well, as this is loading, let me go to my next slides and see what else I was going to tell you. Any questions while we're kind of... Oh, okay, here's what we're going to get to, since we only have 10 minutes. Let's get to the changes of state law. Let's see. Can I pass half? Okay, sorry, this is going to be slow, but I gave as many as I could a copy of this. And I'm going to wing it since you can't see the words. State law on vesting got changed July 1st, 2025. And what it did essentially, it said, you know what? Developers don't get vesting on the approval of their project. We're going to let them get vested as soon as they submit, on the submittal of the project. What? That's crazy, right? Thank you. Crazy, right? Sometimes they don't even get all the way through the process. So that made us in Franklin really freaked out for a hot minute until we kept reading in state law. And what it said is vesting is granted to a project upon submittal when it is substantially compliant. And those are your key words right there. When it is substantially compliant. Now, I know your first question. Okay, Amy, give us the definition of substantially compliant, right? Oh, they did not do that. So that's a bummer. But what the state legislature did do is said, jurisdictions, you get to define substantially compliant. But you have to do it by ordinance or resolution. So that's my homework to everybody today as this continues to load. Go look at this language and go adopt a definition of substantially compliant, because if you don't do that, state law also says that then anything that's submitted will get vested. Yes.
Is there a model that MTS or anyone's come up with? Are these
Ben, great question. Ben just asked, well, is there anything that we can look at? Did MTAS do anything to help us out? Yeah, it's right in front of you. That's what I passed out. So I gave you some good ideas. Oh, is that what's wrong? Okay, thank you, Emily. You're going to help me too. So this is great. So my last couple of slides had this broken out in several slides, but what MTAS did, thank you very much. This was I knew that they were working on something. Is anybody here from MTAS, by the way? I don't want to put words in your mouth. Okay, semi. Okay, well, I heard that they were trying to do something for cities. I had heard there was a memo of some sort, so I just went and found this on their website. So this is accessible to everyone, and it's great. They gave a sample definition. They're not saying use this word for word. You're still going to have to think about it in terms of your city or jurisdiction and maybe wordsmith it, but it is a great example of what is substantially compliant, what that means. And it even goes further on the bottom of the page and then on the flip side of that page, and it gives criteria for what means to be substantially compliant. It means you're meeting the checklist that the city gives on applications. It means that you have followed the regulations of the city to a realm, I can't remember the words. It's basically, it says you're almost there. You're super close to being fully approved. It does give flexibility to say that projects, if they're making like minor or immaterial changes, those can happen after that vesting clock date starts. So to me, what this definition does and this criteria, it just sets it back to the approval stage so that you don't have to manage every project and when it gets submitted. If you adopt something like this, it essentially moves that clock back to the approval of that local governing body, which is a more manageable time frame. So, but like I said, the key to this is that you only get to sort of go back to that approval date when you adopt substantially compliant language. So everybody go do that as soon as you leave here. Start drafting your ordinance or resolution. So, yeah. Any questions on that? I mean, that was like mind-blowing to me when we heard about this state law. We were meeting feverishly. What does it mean? Oh my gosh. So, no questions? Okay. All right. Yeah, question. You can get it to a point where it essentially means the original approving body. You're going to have to write that, though, into your definition. So if you look at, let's see, can I borrow yours? Oh, you don't have the front page. I'm sorry. There we go. Everyone else does. So you can see, like, in the criteria down there on that sheet, you know, that a document, even though it's submitted, it still has to have all the plans required on your checklist. It has to have that, that it demonstrates general conformity to all your different local development standards. It has to address public safety welfare. It has to include certain supporting documents that you require, or else it's not substantially compliant. So so state law moved the start clock to submittal. Defining substantial compliance can move that clock back to where you feel you need it to be for your jurisdiction. It doesn't have to be approvals, but that's for your city to decide. We felt approval was the best option. We did not want plans getting vested in local rules until some body has said, yes, we approve this development in our city. Perfect. Okay, so, sorry, the internet failed me. Yes, question? So you're going to have to work on that with your definition. Yeah, because before it was just approval. So when it didn't get approved, it didn't get vested. Now you're going to have to write that substantial compliant definition to include approvals of some sort before it can gain vesting. Yeah, it got real tricky on us real fast. Okay, 5 minutes. Okay, let me just try to point to my website, and hopefully you guys can go visit it. Like I said, it has a search button at the top that you can type in even just a portion of a project name to pull something up. It also has toggles where if you knew it was a certain plan type, you could just click on that plan type to help make the list get smaller. It has options to click on or off, get rid of the expired projects, because we do report on those, and the completed ones. So you can turn those on, you can turn those off. You can see how we show it here. We put the big word completed to know that project's complete. Not to just totally make your head spin, but it is important to understand when projects are completed, because when they're completed, vesting's also done. That project is done, meaning that when someone wants to go redevelop on that site, they're playing by the new rules. Vesting doesn't live on a property forever. It lives with a project, and when the project's complete, so is that vesting. Yeah, question in the back.
How does surety find
So I think that's for cities to figure out. State law does not necessarily talk about sureties, the word sureties specifically. So, like I said, in the city of Franklin, we are thinking about it in terms of, well, that's required infrastructure that needs to be put in the ground and at least adopted by the city. We still will probably hold maintenance on it. Yeah, Sam, you want to say something? Yeah.
The sureties are going to be in the approval process before you can record, say, a plat. You have to have the sureties, and the jurisdiction has to approve those.
Yeah, that's a great point. I'm following what you're saying is, if sureties are required as part of your zoning ordinance, that's part of the approval process. So until they get those established, that's part of your vesting, that you're going to get vested under whatever surety rules are in place at the time of that approval, and they're going to keep those rules, and it may play into how a project is considered complete, but state law doesn't really talk about it. So I think that's a different topic completely. I think that's how your city deals with sureties and whether you work that into your ordinance of there is going to be an inflationary factor or not. But that has to be part of your rules on sureties, and that will get applied to projects as they get vested. If you change that rule tomorrow, new projects will get that rule, but not the old ones. That's right, 845 sureties, I believe. Okay, so one other thing, keep raising your hand if you have questions, but on our list of projects, what we try to do is make it very visual so people can know quickly what's happening. So for a particular project, if you wanted to look up what's happening on Branch Creek Crossing, we tell you what type of plan it is, we tell you what zoning ordinance it got vested under right away. We don't give you all of them, but we give you the zoning ordinance. It is hyperlinked, so if you wanted to go find a rule, you just click on that. It takes you to the zoning ordinance that was vested. We give you the resolution that it was approved under, if that was how it got approved. Then we list the dates of the 3 milestones right there for you. And if they meet it, I go in and turn it green. So I still have to do that manually, but it's a way to see how a project has progressed. Where is the status of this project? It met its first milestone because it's green, it met its second milestone because it's green, and it's waiting to meet its completion date, which is in 2030. So whatever they still have left to do, if they had completed it, this would have been green and it would have said completed. So they still got something to do, and they have until 2030 to do it. So you can see how very quickly this tells you a good story of a project. And you can use it, if you so choose, to see, well, what's happening in Franklin? How many projects are still without their first milestone? How many are almost complete? What time frames are those? What's been approved lately? You could play around and learn a lot about development, I think, in this. Or you can learn very specific things about a very specific project quickly. The last thing my IT guy did, which was a godsend. You don't see it on here, but when I log in and city staff logs in, I have a little report button. And when I click that button, it instantaneously sends me a chart of projects that are going to meet their milestone in that 6-7 month period that they haven't done it yet. So I don't have to go scan every line item of an Excel spreadsheet anymore. It just pops it out to me. So it's so nice because that's what I was doing. I was literally going, okay, today is October. In 7 months, that's going to be, I don't know, March. Okay, March 2026, 2020. That was crazy. That was crazy. So now I just have a little quick button and I do it in like 5 minutes. So any last questions? I think we're about out of time. Did you guys learn something about vesting? Is your head spinning or are you like, good to go? Okay, yay, all right. Great. Okay. Well, I'm sorry I didn't put my contact up there, but if you have any questions, you can email me. My email's on the City of Franklin website. I love vesting. I talk about it all the time. Thanks.